Welcome to Tennessee Real Estate Insider. I'm Allyson Spencer, your host, also top producing agent here in East Tennessee and property manager. Today, joining me is Bethany Oakes. Bethany, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Bethany is a broker and business owner. She is also an Airbnb host. And today we are going to be talking about Airbnb tips and tricks. So let's dive right in.
Okay.
All right. First, I just want to say, Bethany, you are just an incredibly faithful person. And I really admire that about you. I think that is a skill that is super important for Airbnb hosting. And of course, all aspects in life. So, thank you for being faithful in your work and friendships and just in life. I enjoy that about you. So, okay, so some tips and tricks on Airbnb hosting. What are some things that you feel really are going to enhance the experience?
Well, I think that setting expectations for guests is probably paramount to any hosting experience. I think that when people have an idea that an Airbnb is like a hotel, or like you've got a Verbo that's like a hotel, it becomes a non-equitable experience for people. And then they have expectations that aren't met, and then they're like, oh, wait, I thought I was going to have, a 5-star hotel experience in a 1950s home. So
Right.
it's a very different thing. So I think setting expectations is a really big thing. So usually what I do is I actually have an online manual for the home. Airbnb specifically has this available as a feature in their program. And so I've been to a lot of Airbnbs where they actually print it and they actually put it on the coffee table, and they're like, hey, this is how to do everything, and this is the expectation of the home. I found that when I have printed stuff, things get lost or, thrown out or whatever. So I actually just put it all on the app. And so people can kind of look at my expectations in manuals, especially when I have those things. And
I think that's so important. I do the same thing. And I think creating a guest ready space is so important. Putting ourselves in their shoes. What is something that I would look forward to if I'm staying in an Airbnb? What is the experience I want? And I know for me, definitely like rules. I need to know what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing. So in our Airbnbs, we had the little clear plastic things that stuck on the wall, and we would put little notifications in them. Everyone loved that. We would put our Wi-Fi password on those, directions with the thermostat on those. Anywhere there was going to be a question, we would just put it in there. Even in the bathroom, we offered toiletries at our Airbnb, and we put on there, these are for you. Please take them home if you don't use them. We just throw them away. So I think being able to create a space where it's easy for the consumer to understand what they should and shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Before they get there, though, they have to book it. So what do Superhosts and Airbnb hosts who are looking to attract people, how can they get more bookings than the competition?
So to get Superhost status, you actually have to have pretty high reviews. I think it's a 4.8 review. So initially, it's difficult because you have to have at least 10 bookings, and then you have to have a 4.8 rating on your stuff. So
and a less than 1% cancellation rate.
And a less than 1% cancellation rate. So that's really important. I think the more bookings you have, the less likely you are to be a Superhost, just because the law of averages, right?
Right.
But they actually have a new feature. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called guest favorite. And so you may not be Superhost status, but because you have so many bookings, and you have
I love that.
fairly good reviews, then you actually can become a guest favorite.
Wow.
So I've been looking at some places recently, and I've been seeing guest favorite, and it's because you have like such a high occupancy rate on some of them that it's actually now been deemed as a guest favorite versus you being a super host. So, but being a super host is really important because what it does is it drives all of the business to you because they actually promote your listings first. And
Right.
so you're going to get a lot more business essentially if you have superhost status,
Mhm.
based on your reviews, based on your, your cancellation rates, and based on the amount of times that you actually respond to the inquiries and to the guests themselves. So you have to have pretty much 100% response rate to become a superhost.
Right.
And so I've always like I'm one of those people that I really hate notifications, and so I'm always responding to
Yes.
to to people, so that's not ever been a difficult thing for me. Um, so I think for Superhost specifically, the more that you respond, the more information that you give,
Mhm.
it's better. It contributes to a better overall guest experience. And so I know for me, I have had more time and I've had less time in life. And so there are things that I've actually automated. And I know that you actually automate a lot of your own messages.
Yes. I think automation is key. There are some templates you can use in Airbnb that will go out as soon as a booking occurs. There are templates that go out the day before check-in, the day of check-in, the check. You can set the templates however you want. So for me, I send an immediate text once someone books the Airbnb. Then they get a text leading up to the check-in. They get a text the check-in day, and then they get a text the day before checkout, with checkout instructions. And I developed those templates based on the questions I was getting every time someone would stay. And I
Yeah.
thought, everybody's asking me how to check out. Let me automate this.
Yeah.
So some key things that people are looking for, they want to know where the lockbox is. How do they use the key code? Is there a little check mark that's hidden that they need to highlight on the screen? There's features now on Airbnb. You can actually record videos of this,
Mhm.
which I did do to enhance my
That's
users'
cool.
capabilities. So I went straight up to the door, pushed the buttons, showed them how to do it. And I do think that has helped relieve a lot of questions with check in.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have an electronic key code, there are apps you can change the lock. You can even connect them to Airbnb. So each booking creates a new code so that the home stays
Yeah.
secure. I think safety and security is number one. So being able to auto-populate what you can so that you never lose sight, especially if you're gonna be out of town or on vacation, maybe your notifications are turned off, you're
Yeah.
at a special dinner, someone's checking in, having those automated, things pop up is super helpful. There's also a space where you can leave special instructions for Airbnb customer service.
Mhm.
So if someone is having trouble and you're not available, there's, information that they can help with, which is great.
Yep.
Another thing, that is helpful is just the checkout reminders. What time is checkout? Um, do they need to load the dishwasher before they leave? Do they need to
Yeah.
take the trash out? What are the things that would be helpful for them? Set the thermostat back if it's not an electronic one. Also, if you do partner with a digital, um, HVAC, monitoring service, you can set that too to unlock during Airbnb stays
Yeah.
and after.
I actually had a limiter put
Mhm.
on, again, I have an old house, so I have an old HVAC unit, and something that used to happen to me all the time was that twice a year, my HVAC would break because anytime that there was a pretty substantial jump and change in weather. And so I actually had a limiter put on the unit
Mhm.
itself,
Yep.
to actually say, "Hey, it's not gonna freeze. It's not gonna freeze
Right.
out. So it can't get to this certain temperature or this certain temperature, and it's gonna kick on either way." And that's actually been so helpful.
Yes.
And so your local HVAC professional can install that for you. I mean, I switched over to a digital thermostat, I think it was last year, And that was really helpful as well, just because I can actually click on there and I can see
Mhm.
what the temp is in the house. And, I've had some guests who can't handle certain temperatures. And so they're like, how do I take it off this thing? And I'm like, okay, so here are the steps that you can do. I'm willing to like bring this down or bring this up
Right.
depending on what,
We did the
what you're
same
saying.
thing. We have a base and a height on the AC because that was one of the issues that we were getting, people not knowing how to use the monitor. And then we went to a digital one as well on one of our Airbnbs. It saved us over $300 one summer because we would have just it's constantly people would turn it super low. They enjoyed the air conditioning, which was great, but as soon as checkout occurred, we would set it to a certain temp until the next
Yeah.
check-in. So, being able to monitor those things is great,
Mhm.
to enhance the experience. What are some other helpful things that you noticed for communicating with tenants? If they needed you, how did you maintain good communication?
Well, so the feature that is most used, honestly, is the messaging through the app. So they message, I have notifications turned on my phone, so I get those notifications pretty frequently. But what they also do is they also share your number with the guest and vice versa.
Yes, I love that.
And so I like that too, because they're able to there's been a couple of situations over the last few years where people aren't like, they're not really adept at using the Airbnb app, for example, and they don't know that they know that they have a number that they can reach me, but they don't know that, like, I'm actually getting all their messages. And so they'll just pick up the phone and call me or text
Mhm.
me, and, honestly, that's worked great. And there have been times where guests have failed to check out on time or, things like that, and so that's a really handy thing that you actually have their phone numbers
Absolutely. And
to
then
for them to
communicating with
contact.
the parties involved with keeping your Airbnb functioning. I know there are so many automations and apps out there that can even notify your cleaner
Mhm.
when you get a check-in or if a booking is canceled. So those are great.
There's a couple of programs actually that will connect your short-term rental on multiple platforms.
That is awesome.
And also, so that would be like Airbnb, Verbo, I think Furnish Finders is
Mhm.
on there as well. And you can actually streamline your business that way. And so it basically pairs all of the calendar, integrations on each site. So that way you can actually have it listed on multiple sites,
Yes.
especially if it qualifies for all of those things. So
Right.
whether it's on Furnished Finders or whether it's on Verbo, because, Verbo has very specific criteria over Airbnb. So it's nice if your property qualifies for all three property
Mhm.
sites, and then that way you can actually, you know, put it out there on multiple platforms.
That's perfect. I mean, so helpful. They've come a long way.
Come a long
That was
way.
not always the case.
No.
So let's talk about wow factor.
Yeah.
What are some things that really are going to attract someone to the property? I know for me personally, there have been seasons and times when I have seen Airbnbs decorate for Christmas,
Uh-huh.
maybe leave a gift basket in the front. We put toiletries in the bathroom that are small, cute little travel size. There are some coffee, maybe breakfast, condiments. There's all kinds of things, but what are some things that you have found to be great wow factors?
So I know this is going to kind of sound funny, but Airbnbs that have themes are actually the most widely sought Airbnbs.
I agree.
And so, like, people want to stay in unique properties.
Mhm.
And, if you have like a house, like for example, there's been multiple short-term rentals that have very specific things, like, for example, Lord of the Rings. Maybe you have a berm house that you've converted into a hobbit hole, or maybe you have like, I see Instagram stories all the time about, um these Airbnbs that they've created and made them Harry Potter themed
Yeah.
or Friends themed or, different things like that. And so when you have somebody who's looking for a very specific type of property, it makes it so much fun because then you're like, every bathroom or every room that you walk into is really lending itself to that theme. So if you have a unique property that's like, oh, look, I have a tree house, you know, and I'm gonna create this tree house and I'm gonna have this woodland experience. That's ultimately what you're doing is you're creating a vacation experience for people, you know?
Absolutely. Now, what if you have a plain Jane house? Have you ever played around with themes in your property?
Yes, I have actually. So right now,
Not that your house is plain Jane. I just meant if it's
no,
not a
but
tree house.
this is normal. It's just like a normal little cottage. Um, so I think for the first 3.5 years, I didn't do anything like that because really, like like I said in the last episode, my house was between two hospitals. I mostly housed people coming in for you know, whether they were travel nurses or doctors or things like that. So or people that were traveling with pets because I allow pets in my home. Um, so I had that more clientele, but over the last year, I've actually transitioned my house to a much more, um, it's a cottage, so it looks like, and it looks very small on the outside. So I'm a Doctor Who fan, and so I actually have Doctor Who themed
That
stuff
is
all throughout the
so
house,
fun.
and so it's British slash Doctor Who theme. So
I mean, that's an experience
it's an
worth
experience.
staying at. I love it. We were in, well, our Jonesboro house. We made a theme, the local Southern,
Mhm.
and so we looked for farm stuff and Dolly Parton and Jonesboro. I actually hired a artist on Etsy to design some specific Jonesboro artwork.
That's
It
awesome.
was beautiful and it was really cool to showcase.
Yeah.
I think too, offering some additional amenities if you can, like if you have a den, throw in a foosball table
Yeah.
or a ping pong table, maybe some board games or an Xbox,
Yeah.
something that's going to allow an activity of sorts. We also have smart TVs in our rentals that we've used for
Yeah.
Airbnbs so that people can sign into their own streaming devices.
Yep.
Do you have them sign into streaming devices or do you provide those?
So, no, I have them sign into their own streaming devices. Of course, you know, I actually periodically go and sign out of everybody's streaming devices because
Right.
people forget to sign out of their streaming devices, but I do allow that. And for a long time, I actually had a DVD player slash Blu-ray player there, because I had a whole collection of
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I left there when because I used to live there, so it was
That is just so fun. I mean,
I have a
the
library.
possibilities are endless. That makes me think of so many fun things. So, if you're a creative person,
Mhm.
Airbnb is like a blank canvas
Yeah,
waiting for you to create a beautiful experience for others to
absolutely.
enjoy and for you to profit on.
Mhm.
Okay, so finishing up, a couple things that I have found to be helpful with also achieving superhost status is one, when they are done staying, I actually go and review the person staying because when you review them, they get an email that notifies them in order to view the review, they have to leave you a review.
Right.
So even if it's a short and sweet, simple little message, I will leave something and almost instantly I get a notification they've left me a review.
Yeah,
So in order to grow your reviews, leave a review.
right.
Have you noticed that to help you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, there are some people that you're like, I don't know if I want to leave you know, like, so you gotta have,
You don't leave a review for
you
everyone.
don't leave a review for everyone. But if you had like a lot of problems, like, you don't want that review. But if you,
Exactly. I don't want you to leave me a review. You complained a lot.
he complained a lot, I don't want you to, I'm not reviewing you. You don't review me.
Exactly.
Just move on, you know? But, no, I do. I especially in the beginning when you're building up your database really of reviews, like, you know, and actually it's cool because I know for Airbnb specifically, I don't know about Verbo or the others, but for Airbnb specifically, they actually run promotions on your property when you first start, to really kind of because again, people aren't necessarily gonna stay in something that doesn't have a lot of reviews. So they actually discount your property, they run specials, they do the things that they want to do on them so that you can actually get guests in there. Then you can actually review them, so they'll review you. And most of the time, people are really nice about it, and they'll leave you a really good review, even if maybe if they had a little struggle, especially
I
when you
think
first start.
reviews are make or break.
Yeah.
They are make or break, and there have been times, I have even received some positive or negative feedback, privately. That's a great feature that they also offer, and when I stay places, I try to leave a great review publicly, but if there is an issue, if I haven't already sent a
Yeah.
message, you can send a private message to a Superhost or to a host, notify them, maybe the bathtub drained slowly or there was not enough knives. You never know what the issue is.
Yeah. Sure.
But, that shouldn't hinder a good review. So I think the most important takeaway is to be a super host. You have to think like a guest, reverse the experience, and create a beautiful art piece for someone to enjoy. So,
You're curating an experience.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for joining today.
Yes, my pleasure.
And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much.